Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a new top meta threat in the Open Grade League, and that is Rage Fist Annihilape. While Annihilape does have a shadow form, today I'm going to be testing out the regular Annihilape. Rage Fist has the same stats as Night Slash, but it's a ghost move and it has a guaranteed boost. And as you're going to notice once these battles start, I'm running some very particular IVs on the Clodsire. The very high attack allows me to get a counter breakpoint versus most Clodsire that allows me to win the 1s and the 2s, and the high defense does provide a bulk point versus Toxapex. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Rage Fist Annihilape in action in the Open Grade League. Hopping into the first match, we are leading Miltank into Dunsparce, and for this team, you could very easily run a Toxapex or a Clodsire on the lead, and that would honestly probably even make the team slightly better. But since yesterday's video, or I guess at the time of recording it, today's video, did end up featuring a Clodsire plus Fighter Core, today I wanted to switch it up. My opponent is going to go for the Drill Run. I'm going to bank energy and send in the Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye is going to be used to lure out any potential anti-ghost types, and then hopefully destroy them so that way Annihilape will not have to deal with them. I'm going to tank a Drill Run, fire off the foul play. Opponent does decide to commit a shield, and I'm more than happy to let this go. Sableye did its job, and now I get farm on my Annihilape. So I get to bring in the Annihilape, I get a bunch of farm, I take basically no damage, in comes a Talonflame, and this is a good counter to Annihilape, but I'm up a shield and I'm up energy, and look what Annihilape can do right here. My counters are now boosted thanks to the guaranteed boost from Rage Fist. They're going to go for the fly. I'm going to look to fire off another Rage Fist, and this will very comfortably KO if they let it through. Opponent shields, but now there's a problem. They're just going to get farmed all the way down. They're forced to switch into Azumarill, but now Azumarill is going to have to take increasingly more powerful Rage Fists. Rage Fist is going to connect. Azumarill firing off more energy. I am going to commit the shield here with the Annihilape, and Annihilape is going to make it to a close combat as this will hit for slightly more damage. Triple boosted close combat, KOs Azumarill, back in comes the Talonflame, but that's getting knocked out of the sky with a Thunderbolt. And an endgame where the opponent had a Flyer and a Fairy, Annihilape just completely takes over and gets the win. We see a pretty decent lead in the next match, Miltank versus Jumpluff. One thing I do want to note is because Annihilape and Primeape have arrived and they're so strong, a lot of people are going to be running teams to try and hard counter those particular Pokemon. But in this case, my opponent did not prepare for the Annihilape with their safe switch. They're going to bring in Licky Licky. Licky Licky goes for the Earthquake. I'm going to look to massively overfarm with the Annihilape. They don't commit to another Earthquake. They just go for a Body Slam. That's not going to KO. I tank that. Look at this. I get a full counter farm down because they did not commit to the Earthquake. And now I have a Rage Fist plus a close combat. They're going to bring in the Jumpluff. I'm going to Rage Fist to boost up my attack and then go for the close combat since it does slightly more. They make a catch onto Dunsparce, and it's all she wrote. Close combat plus a counter. Down goes Dunsparce. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Bad lead in the next match, Miltank into Clodsire. Safe switch to Shadow Sableye, and my opponent is going to respond with Feraligatr. As you may notice, I also run a very high attack weight Shadow Sableye. Not only does it have some benefits in terms of Shadow Claw damage, but it also allows you to win a lot of CMP ties. For example, against Feraligatr. So here I shield, my opponent clicks the move right away because most of the time they win CMP over Sableye, but due to my high attack, I'm able to win the CMP tie, force the final shield, and now they're energy dry, which means I can bring in the Miltank right away. Miltank is going to outpace by 1 turn, and the Body Slam will KO, and this can set up an endgame where my Annihilape can potentially sweep. Opponent sends in, oh, I thought that was going to be an Annihilape, but no, it's Pangoro. And this is part of what I meant when I said break the meta in the thumbnail, is the old meta just cannot really compete with Annihilape. Like, we've seen a lot of these Glacier fighters like Machamp and Pangoro, and to me, I think they're just strictly on their way out of the meta because of how strong Annihilape is. Annihilape is going to be committing the shield, opponent is going to bait with the Sludge Bomb, but They're still not at enough for an Earthquake, so I can fire off the Rage Fist. Rage Fist is going to get them low. I farm up, switch as they get to the Earthquake, and we get a nice catch onto the Miltank. Miltank absorbing that damage, no problem. In comes Pangoro. If Pangoro goes for close combat, they're going to be heavily debuffed, and I can just farm them all the way down. So instead, they have to try and karate chop me into Night Slash range, but now they're just in one counter range. I can bring in the Annihilape, farm down. Clodsire cannot outpace, and the opponent will concede the match. We see a great lead in the next match, Miltank vs Shadow Dragonite. Opponent save switches into Azumarill, and they are core broken by the Miltank. There we have a brutal frame drop, but luckily enough, I still get the Thunderbolt, and I don't think my opponent got any fast moves that they shouldn't have. They're farming up quite a bit, and there's actually a rollout breakpoint that you can get in this matchup as Miltank that turns the zeros from a loss into a win. I'm going to look to farm up quite a bit and go for a Thunderbolt and look to secure the knockout onto Azumarill. Opponent shields, I switch into the Sableye because I can get a 2 Shadow Claw head start while taking very little damage. And hopefully this means I can make 2 foul plays versus the Dragonite, and there it is. Dragonite, oh my goodness, these Dragon Breaths are shredding. We had a previous game where I won it because I had the high attack, but it looks like my lack of bulk is actually going to cost me in this game as I get farmed down by the Dragonite. And that is sometimes the choices that you make with IVs. They can be great in some matches and they can be tough in others. I really need Annihilape to be able to one-shot something in the back. I shield up the Dragon Claw and I do exit with some energy. What is that final Pokemon going to be? We've seen the Dragonite, we've seen the Azumarill, and it's Toxapex. Now this is a matchup that Annihilape wins. However, my issue here is I've just taken too much damage already. So unfortunately, even though I do have the Poison Jab bulk point against most Toxapexes, like you would have to be decently attack weighted to get the Poison Jab bulk point, the Poison Jab break point against me, but here it's just not winning. They're probably going to go for a catch right when I get this. My only hope is that I can leave it in 1 counter range with an undercharge, but even then I would still get Poison Jab down. So realistically, once Sableye got farmed down, that was just a miscalculation on my part. I couldn't win the game. We pick up a pretty decent lead in the next match, leading the Miltank into the Jumpluff. Jumpluff going to fire off its energy first. They have enough energy for the acrobatics, but they go for the energy ball, and that does quite a lot of damage. I'm going to return fire with the Body Slam. Ice Beam, of course, would be nice here, but I think Thunderbolt is just better coverage into the meta overall. And I'm just going to keep spamming out these Body Slams. If the opponent went for an energy ball, it's definitely likely that they probably have Aerial Ace. And Aerial Ace is not actually going to knock out here. I can survive this as the Miltank, get to a Body Slam, and win the zeros. That is very, very nice for the Miltank. So hopefully Jumpluff is their only counter, but no, it's not. This is what I was mentioning about a lot of people in the first few days after the community day are going to be running some very anti-Annihilape, anti-Primeape teams, just because they know a lot of people are going to be trying out this new powerful Pokemon. So far, we've seen from our opponent 2 Pokemon that completely shred Annihilape. In the back is Feraligatr, and this game is over. I get to this foul play. Foul play forces the shield, and they may have a shield left, but you know what you can't shield? Boosted counters. So I just go for the Rage Fist, and at this point, my opponent knows there's no way to win the game, so they're just going to let the Rage Fist through, and we're able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, Miltank into Shadow Dragonite. Again, with the amount of flyer leads we're seeing, people are really trying to not let people succeed with Annihilape, because they know everyone's going to be trying it. So they save switch into Clodsire, which is pretty wild to me in a Mud Slap meta. But I don't have a Mud Slapper, so instead I'm going to bring in Sableye. Sableye is going to take pretty significant damage here. Opponent is going to go for the Stone Edge, and I'm actually going to commit the shield. I know there's 6 off their necks, but I'm now going to be on my 5 cycle. So I can throw 5 here. I outpace and I get the double up, and this guarantees that if they bring in the Dragonite, I can just get my shield back. And I'm pretty low. We saw how much damage Dragon Breath did to me in that earlier game. They're not going to get a lot of farm on the Dragonite either, so this honestly ends up working out pretty well for me. Power Gem is shielded. They get the farm down. Back in comes Miltank. In the back is Ferrothorn, and I can send in Annihilape. Annihilape, these counters are shredding, and you know what? Let's boost them up a little bit with a Rage Fist. Rage Fist is going to land. Annihilape, it's just absolutely terrifying with these guaranteed attack boosts. Power Whip is going to connect. That does a ton of damage. Annihilape is going to get the farm down. Annihilape does not get farmed down. We're able to make it to another Rage Fist. Rage Fist is going to force the shield, and I have basically a full health Miltank here. Opponent is going to fire their energy, and I'm feeling confident. They're going for a bait. We no shield, and we call the bait, and they're going to quit immediately. I can't blame them. That was a little bit of a savage call, and we're able to take the win. Miltank versus Wigglytuff. I mean, considering what we have in the back, it's amazing to see the Wigglytuff here. Wigglytuff often paired with Mud Slappers in the back. I will fire off the Body Slam, and here I make a pretty large error. I played to a CMP tie that I do not win. I was honestly just going on autopilot there. That's a pretty terrible misplay from me, because now my Body Slam's going to do quite a bit less damage. Body Slam... It looks like a second Body Slam will actually not KO, so I'm forced to go now for a Thunderbolt. But a Thunderbolt will be able to secure the knockout, winning me switch in this game. But if it's a Mud Slapper, I need to pivot out. They bring in Drapion, and I shouldn't have pivoted. That's a huge error on my part. I was so locked into the fact that I was going to see a Mud Slapper and I needed to pivot Sableye that, unfortunately, I end up pivoting it, and it's a Drapion. And Drapion gets absolutely crushed by Annihilape. Annihilape does quite well there. But Sableye does not do well, so I just throw away the whole Sableye, and it's a Drifblim in the back. And this was the most winnable game ever. If I just don't give up switch, I just fully hard counter them in the back, but unfortunately the mistake was made. Miltank and a Clodsire, bad lead. The Clodsire are going to stay in here, but if you switch instantly into the Sableye, Sableye gets to outpace and fire off a Foul Play, and Foul Play does do some pretty nice damage. They only end up going for a Stone Edge here. My guess is this could be the Clodsire for Alligator and the Annihilape team, and it looks like that's exactly what it's going to be. It paused there for a second. I had high hope it was a charge attack priority tie, but it's not to be. It was just a little bit of game stutter there, and they're going to exit this matchup with a ton of energy. So I'm going to have to give a shield back because Hydro Cannon does so much damage in this matchup. There, my opponent throws on less than optimal timing. They end up throwing 2 and the move, so I do get 2 free turns instead of 1. We'll absolutely take that. Here, I'm going to wait the turn because I can't overfarm anymore or they would get to another Hydro, so I wait the turn. They end up shielding, they bank the move, and oh my goodness. They must be reading the team and thinking that their Feraligatr wins CMP over Annihilape, but I am running an absurdly high attack Annihilape, and I'm expecting they're going to have their own Annihilape in the back, so I overfarm to the max. I'm 1 over double Rage Fist, because I Rage Fist KO here, I Rage Fist to cap tie the Feraligatr, and now I have a 1 counter head start. So if they have an Annihilape in the back, which they do, we're just going to get to one-shot them with a double boosted Rage Fist. Opponent immediately concedes the match. Bad lead in the next match, leading Miltank into the Quagsire. I save switch Sableye, and here I was very surprised at my opponent. My opponent could have Aqua-tailed before I got my move and denied a full sneak, but instead, they just overfarmed so much energy. They let me actually throw the move first. I call a bait, I get to fire off a Foul Play, and now they kind of have to double shield if they want to save this energy. So my opponent now going to look and try for a farm down. They don't get it. They send in Primeape, and I am not going to switch lock Annihilape. Instead, I am just going to let the Sableye go, bring in the Annihilape, and now I can just go for a farm down. This way, if they have something that completely destroys Annihilape in the back, I can just switch out because they're going to be switch locked, but I will not be. So they do get the boost, but I can shield up. They bring in the Quagsire, and I go for the counter there because I didn't think it was quite Rage Fist range. But after one more counter, I believe this should now be Rage Fist range, so I will cap tie on the second. Rage Fist is going to KO. In the back, they're going to have their own Annihilape, and whoever has the energy lead, and in this case the boost, will win the game. We see a terrible lead. Miltank cannot catch a break, leading into Magnezone. Magnezone farms up, and they almost always bait here, but I kind of have to shield, but they full send the Wild Charge, and then they stay in. What do they have back there that is so weak to Sableye? Oh my goodness. They're staying in, they're shielding, they're going for a Mirror Shot. I definitely feel like I have to preserve the Sableye here because they are very clearly extremely weak to Sableye. Opponent sends in Drifblim, and I suddenly have a terrible feeling. I think it's Annihilape, and if they let this through, which they do, they can just sweep with Annihilape and his Shadow, which is even worse. If it was regular, I might be in a slightly better position, but since it's the Shadow, they're gonna Rage Fist and then farm me down, and I'm just gonna get swept. Wait, Maybe not. Maybe there's still a chance here because they're going to have to close combat the Miltank. And after they close combat the Miltank, then their defense is going to be heavily debuffed and I can get some farm with the Sableye. So this, even though it feels over, it might not be. Maybe we can make this a close game. There's the close combat. It KOs. In comes the Sableye, but the Annihilape survives the Shadow Claws and I will lose the game. Hopping into the final match, we've got one more Shadow Dragonite for the road, and the Dragonite is staying in. That's a pretty massive surprise. I'm going to farm up, one past the move, and fire off the Slam. Body Slam doesn't KO, but Shadow Dragonite is so frail that they actually do end up shielding regardless. I will commit the shield, and again, I'm just going to look to overfarm here. Opponent goes for a switch into Cresselia, and I can bring in Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye does survive a Moonblast, and they can't farm down after, so I'm more than happy to let this through. And they're on Grass Knot Future Sight. Oh my goodness, that's terrific. I overfarm, I played the CMP tie. Sableye is going to win that by a mile, and by perfectly overfarming, we farmed it into foul play range, knocking out Cresselia, and now my opponent is in a very uncomfortable position. They're going to bring in the Dragonite, but that's going to seal their fate. If Dragonite farms down here, they win CMP over Miltank, but I'm just not going to let them do that. I'm going to switch out into the Miltank. We get to play aggressively here. Body Slam KOs. In the back is Toxapex, and that game was over, and the opponent will concede the match. All in all, I think that Annihilape is so back. Annihilape, its typing has always been amazing, but the nerf to counter did hurt it quite a bit. However, even if your pacing is slower, if you're able to boost up your damage and close combat being cheaper than Shadow Ball, Annihilape honestly feels really good to run right now. Again, the one thing that I will caution is a lot of people right now are running teams that are intentionally like double or triple strong to Annihilape since they know a lot of people will be testing it out. So I definitely recommend building it and maybe holding on to it for a couple days, because once people get back to running more standard teams, I mean, my goodness, this thing is an absolute menace. I did mention at the start that I do have a very good IV Shadow as well, but I wanted to run the regular specifically because I think the regular, especially with these kind of weird stats, does have a tremendous amount of play. Being able to win against bulky matchups like the Clodsire and the Toxapex is a massive, massive plus. I believe, and I do want to say a brief thank you here for all the people who I asked for help with Annihilape IVs. I believe it was Tho, Inadequence, and Tomahawk UK. So big thank you to them for the assist. But I am just pulling it up now, so bear with me one moment here. I'm pulling it up because I do want to double check the exact stats. Alright, I'm back, and the exact stat criteria that I used for finding a Mankey to build was an attack stat above 126 and a defense stat over 104.5. 126 attack means that basically against any Clodsire you can encounter, even like, I think it was like a 0.15.6 or something like that, you still get that counter breakpoint, which is very valuable in terms of being able to win Clodsire in the 1 shield and the 2 shield. And the defense stat does cover against most high-rank Toxapex. Granted, a high-attack Toxapex will be able to breakpoint you, but considering the amount of attack that we're running, you can't really get much more defense than this without things getting a little tough in terms of other matchups. But yeah, all in all, Annihilape with Rage Fist, it's so back and better than ever. We're definitely going to see a lot of change in the Open Great League meta as we get this pretty large meta shakeup halfway through. So it'll be interesting to see for the remainder of the season what strategies emerge. Because my goodness, this thing is an absolute beast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.